By the late 1980s, Batman had surged in popularity to become the flagship hero of DC Comics, a title held to this very day. And while certain storylines like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns and Year One played a major part in that, the main catalyst was the 1989 Batman movie directed by Tim Burton.
In what was already a loaded summer blockbuster season with the likes of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2, and Star Trek V, Batman surpassed them all, breaking box office records and raking in more in toys / video games / clothing / cereal / haircut sales.
Yes, haircuts. The fact that every bit of marketing for the film was just a shot of the bat symbol inspired many a youth to shave the bat symbol into their hair. No, my parents would not let me do that.
DC capitalized on the runaway success by launching a third ongoing Batman comic, joining Batman and Detective Comics. This new series would be different, though, focusing mainly on the Caped Crusaders' early days with story arcs meant to take place on their own, which gave the book more of an anthology feel.
For the most part, the new Batman Legends of the Dark Knight title would cover the Caped Crusaders' early days, save for a few exceptions that tied into major storylines like Nightfall and No Man's Land. Many of these stories often feature Batman's first encounter with several characters, heroes or villains. Case in point, today's example, Batman meeting Green Arrow for the first time.
In many ways, it makes perfect sense to tell a story like this, as the Emerald Archer was often criticized as Batman meets Robin Hood. Oliver Queen was a wealthy orphan who became a vigilante using gadgets to take down bad guys, like Batman. He had a kid sidekick, like Batman. He had an arrow car, like the Batmobile, an aeroplane, like the Batplane, and yes, even an arrow cave. It was so bad that writer Kevin Smith took a moment out of his Quiver storyline to have the normally stone-cold Batman call Oliver Queen out for never having an original thought before in his life.
And yet, Ollie was still a little bit different, particularly in the early 1970s when writer Dennis O'Neil turned him into a really left-leaning liberal superhero. He would often criticize Batman for fighting crime but not exactly doing anything to prevent it. So who better than Dennis O'Neil to come back and write the first encounter between the Caped Crusader and the Emerald Archer? This is issues 127 to 131 of Legends of the Dark Knight, The Arrow and the Bat.
Green Arrow confronts a purse thief in an alley. He knows he snatched an old lady's purse mainly for drug money and offers the kid $50 for the purse to take it back to the old lady, only to suddenly realize that it wasn't actually her purse. That's all suddenly interrupted by a drive-by shooting which is seemingly targeted at Green Arrow. The reason soon becomes clear as Oliver receives a visit from Wendell, his chief attorney at Queen Industries. Someone brokered a deal between the company and Wayne Enterprises to manufacture a hyperactive defoliant for battle purposes. Oliver found out and quashed the deal, and now that person has seemingly put out a hit on him. Ollie tries to lay low in the mountains for a while. Unfortunately, he gets found out by a hitman who tracked him there, meaning there's probably more where that came from. So it's on to Gotham City to see if Bruce Wayne knows anything about this.
Now, you think this would be a point in the story where we would harken back to Ollie and Bruce being classmates at rich people's boarding school. But no, they really only met once in college, and even then, Ollie wasn't exactly thrilled as Bruce was still trying to perfect his whole playboy persona.
Bruce continues to play dumb, saying that the only thing Wayne Enterprises did was part of its own internal investigation into the deal. Of course, this is all just part of Batman's plan as the Dark Knight later confronts Oliver at his hotel room. However, before he can explain anything, Ollie needs to suit up because there's an army of hitmen descending on the place. The two work together to take down the hired goons, leaving one to interrogate. However, it doesn't turn out much, as whoever hired the goons wanted to cover their tracks and only got them through a third-party broker. All that's known is that Wayne Enterprises' representative in the defoliant deal, one Richard Hinckley, was killed shortly after making said deal. Batman tells Ollie to lay low while he conducts a further investigation. Batman returns to the Batcave to work with Alfred, who can't help but wonder if Green Arrow might make for a good friend, casually forgetting that Batman doesn't really do friends. Instead, Batman researches Hinckley, turning up that he was last seen doing business in the country of Debar, which just happens to be where Vicky Vale is doing a report about its new childlike emperor.
If the name Vicky Vale does sound familiar to you, it's probably because she was played by Kim Basinger in the 1989 Batman movie. Or you would know her best from the infamous all-star Batman and Robin comic, where, at writer Frank Miller's behest, she spent much of the first issue slinking around in her underwear. However, before all of that, Vicky Vale was actually Bruce Wayne's primary love interest through much of the 50s and early 60s. She often played a Lois Lane type character set out to prove that Batman and Bruce Wayne were one and the same. However, it turns out the constant pressure of the Bat lifestyle caused Bruce to neglect her, and eventually the relationship fell apart.
The Prime Minister of Dabar, known only as Scade, explains to Vale that the childlike Emperor, Prince Yelly, is the reincarnation of Dabar's founder, also named Yelly. Not only does the childlike Emperor have a matching birthmark to Yelly, he also has the original Yelly's gift of foresight, proven when he predicts an unruly general's death by falling safe, thus proving that the Moppet is in no way a puppet. Batman visits Oliver Queen once again with the information that he turned up. It turns out that Hinckley was looking to deal with Dabar's former militaristic ruler known as Zhao, who Green Arrow and Green Lantern had recently deposed. However, Zhao himself was recently killed, and that's because Prime Minister Scade is really behind everything, and he's hired a mercenary group to now take out the Emerald Archer.
This character is called Master Hayam, and he is part of a mercenary group called the Jafub.
Hayam believes that the best way to kill an archer is with another archer, so he dispatches Zafub's top archer named Sag to kill Green Arrow. He also sends out a diminutive hitman to take care of Oliver's chief attorney Wendell, who first tipped him off to the deal about the defoliant. When news of this reaches Oliver Queen, he elects to skip out on the flight to the bar and head to see who killed Wendell. He winds up being joined by Wayne Enterprises' top investigator Melton Sampson, who is in no way Batman in disguise. Scouting the area turns up how Wendell was killed. He was garroted via a lengthy fishing line, and when Samson goes to investigate further, Sag confronts Queen. Before Ollie can even notch an arrow, Sag fires 2 shots. One arrow tears apart Ollie's quiver, and the other snaps his bow in half. It falls to Samson to reveal that he is really Batman in disguise and distracts Sag long enough for Oliver to knock him unconscious. Batman takes Sag back to the Batcave for purposes of interrogation, while Oliver decides to take up the villain's bow and attempt some target practice. However, it appears that these events have somehow caused Oliver Queen to lose his edge. He can't even hit a sapling a few feet away, which brings about a lot of derision from a group of passing hipsters.
Spoilers, the hipsters are also in the employ of Master Hayam, who is trying to further Oliver's self-doubt.
Batman watched things from afar and decided to head back to the Batcave as he's got no time to coddle Ollie. Unfortunately, he really doesn't have a plan as to what exactly to do next, as he's gotten some information from Sag but sends him back to Dabar. Upon returning to the country, Hayam tells Sag that his next failure will be his last. Without his archery abilities, Oliver elects to lay low, though he's growing increasingly paranoid about everyone he encounters. Batman arranges for Oliver to stay at a different hotel under an assumed name under the strict orders to stay there and not come out until this blows over. From there, it's up to Bruce Wayne to visit with Vicky Vale about Dabar, Prince Yelly, and the new Prime Minister. Bruce recognizes something about Scade and swipes one of Vale's photos to run through the Batcomputer. It turns out that Scade was a con artist born in Dabar but raised mainly in the United States, who found Prince Yelly and got appointed Prime Minister. It's time to head to Dabar to take care of things.
Batman's not the only one heading to Dabar, as after an intense bout of paranoia while fetching some ice and a Coke, Oliver Queen has also resolved to go to the country. Just not with Batman.
In fact, Ollie has already made it to the Royal Palace and is making a scene. This in turn attracts the attention of Scade, Hayam, and Sag. He is given a complimentary bow as only an archer can kill another archer, but Queen knows this is all a setup. So Hayam just knocks him out. Ollie comes to in a cell with Prince Yelly, who explains this is all part of Scade's plan.
Basically, what Scade is trying to do is stage a terrorist attack to kill young Prince Yelly with the defoliant from Queen/Wayne Industries. I mean, I guess he doesn't understand that's not how defoliants work, but yes, I know they're referencing Agent Orange, but that was more of a gradual thing. This is more of an instantaneous thing, and, defoliants are used to kill plants, not humans. That's just kind of a side effect. Anyway, basically he wants to use this as an excuse to go to war with the neighboring countries and thus gain more power.
Batman arrives at the palace thinking that Scade is executing one of the guards as the big set piece, only to realize the truth when he sees the Prime Minister holding a vial of the defoliant. Ollie tries to stage an escape, but the guards overwhelm him and grab Yelly, who assures his new friend that rescue lies behind the green door.
Ollies Salvation is a porno movie with Marilyn Chambers and Ben Davidson.
Batman comes to Ollie's rescue, and the two fight their way towards the platform where the terrorist attack is about to take place. Batman begins fighting with Hayam, who has deemed the Dark Knight a worthy opponent. Meanwhile, Oliver manages to locate the green door, and inside is a bow and arrow. Oliver manages to get off a shot which takes out a sniper, who then redirects his shot, inadvertently causing the vial of defoliant to burst in the Prime Minister's hands. Hayam is knocked unconscious and Scade is officially dealt with, while Yelly reveals that, well, he didn't really know that there was archery equipment inside that closet. He just knew that Salvation lay behind it, so maybe the prince might actually have a bit of foresight after all. Batman and Oliver Queen then thank each other before heading back to the United States.
And that concludes our look at Batman, Legends of the Dark Knight, the Arrow, and the Bat. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I do think there's some really good artwork in this story. I think it's some top-notch work, really solid, fluid, good storytelling, overall good. And I do like there's some decent characterization in this. Like, I like the fact that Bruce Wayne doesn't reveal that he's Batman to gain Green Arrow's trust or anything of that nature. It's a nice little spin on the idea. Something that would normally happen in one of these stories, you know? Unfortunately, that's kind of where the compliments end. This story is just boring. It's really dull. The villains are dull. I mean, the idea isn't entirely bad. It's just the villains themselves are uninspired. I mean, why not use regular villains for this? Like, you know, do something recognizable. Put, like, Count Vertigo, a longtime Green Arrow nemesis, or Merlin the Archer, or Deadshot, KG Beast, anyone. It would have been so much more entertaining. I mean, Master Hayam. Yeah, just not very interesting at all. And again, for a story that's supposed to be detailing how these heroes meet and work together, they don't really work together that much. They, you know, fight a couple bad guys, then they split up. Batman goes back to the Batcave. Ollie hides out in a hotel. That's it. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more interaction between the two. Like, you know, I don't know if they need to go back to the Batcave necessarily, but, you know, work with Oliver in the Green Arrow costume a little bit, have that work. Like I said, it's also hard to tell whether or not they're always in Gotham City or if Ollie starts in Star City or not. So that's another point against this. But, yeah, overall, this just really isn't very interesting at all, outside of the novelty that it's retelling an origin story, I guess. So I'm going to give Batman, Legends of the Dark Knight, the Arrow and the Bat a D. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.